Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News on 3FM. My name is Beatrice Adu. The news is also live on Kesme 107.1 FM and across the world at 3news.com. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Calls deepen for the removal of Energy Minister Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh over worsening power crisis, even as groups gear up to hit the street. We'll touch base with the regions on the situation. Meanwhile, governance expert Professor Bafo Ajimandua is urging President Akufo-Addo to show leadership by calling the power sector players to order.
The general impression I get is that the country is facing a tough time, and that government has not been too active.
Also on this program, tensions mount in MPP in Yendi constituency over party's decision not to rerun the January 27 parliamentary primary. We're live in the northern part of the country. And much later, economist and professor and a former rector of GIMPA, Professor Stephen Ade, parts back of government team negotiating third tranche of Ghana's IMF deal, but says it's still too early to pull the brakes on fixing the economy. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Calls are deepening for the removal of Energy Minister Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh over the worsening power situation in many parts of the country. Dr. Opoku-Prempeh is, in a recent outburst, questioned the rationale behind calls for a load shedding timetable when the power provider, the Electricity Company of Ghana, has stated that there was no power crisis to necessitate such a timetable. He challenged critics to develop their own timetable if they believe it is necessary, stressing that ECG has not announced any plans for load shedding. The comments by the minister have since received widespread backlash from power consumers in the country, particularly on social media, prompting calls for his dismissal. Meanwhile, some citizens are gearing up to return to the streets for another doomsday vigil if the situation does not improve. That's a conversation across Ghana's digital media as the challenges of erratic power supply continue to leave citizens frustrated with no end in sight. The power outages, according to many watchers, has worsened in the last few days, with many homes seeing the lights go off longer than before, prompting calls for citizen mobilization to register anger at the situation. Lead convener of the first ever Doomsday Vigil in 2015, Yvonne Nelson, in a tweet sparked the conversation with groups like Democracy Hub and Fix the Country already hinting of same. Let's go to the ground and bring you some situation from the Upper East region. Castro Senyala is our man there. He joins us live on the line. Castro, I'm wondering where you are currently and what the situation there is like regarding power supply.
Right, Beatrice, I am currently in Avrongo, and power supply is very erratic in the sense that the unplanned power outages are becoming one too many, and that is what residents have been saying. According to them, the unplanned cuts are damaging their gadgets and making business activities very difficult. I've also crossed over to the university community, which is the CK2 UTAS, where students have also been sharing concerns, saying that they are unable to study, particularly that they are in an exam week where sometimes they would have to study and prepare for the paper the next day. But when the unplanned power cuts come in, they are left with no other option than to close their books and do other things. There's also the issue of being in a room where there's excessive sun, which is causing so much heat, and they think that the power outages are not helping situations as far as sleeping and being able to sleep well, especially in the night, is concerned. Let's listen to some of the residents and students sharing their frustrations with us.
Yeah, actually, we're having a light issue. We're having a light issue for our side. Off and on, off and on. Like this idea, I've been buying engine, like 4 engine. I changed 4 engine, and they be off and on, spoil the old one to the new engine. What I bought. So last week, off and on, off and on, off and on our lights. They are affecting us for this work, plenty.
The issue of the power outages is something that is very disturbing to we the students, especially this week and last week, we are writing our end of semester exam, and the power outage is something that is disturbing our studies. We are not able to study in the night, and then considering the weather too is very hot, you are not able to sleep in the night. It is something that is really disturbing our studies and our livelihood as a whole. And we would like to plead on government if they can really work on this so that it will help us, especially in our studies.
And even it's not about only the charging of the gas. We have the hard copy of some of the materials that we use, but there's no light for us to rent. So I want to plead on the government to do something for us, at least, so that we as students, we can be able to study very well. Even if we cannot have the light for our equipment, at least we will get the brightness to study and write our exams.
As I said, Upper is one of Rungo. As you are, Papa, Meton Stone Nema, also Frija, Adum, or we beton you are, we man or cement, and she be called lights no. Obeton, there will have breast, Cocoda, Yadum Kanya. Nano say, Omodum Kanya, many may intimate that Yasarene, Jana Sanda, Kakono Maso, Kakono Madum. This is a say, me feed me, I say, because of doing so no. Omuduma, who call, who so calls up, no, my sons or light, no. Omuduma, okay, I pay me quite feed me, and Nashi. And the pacho abai munya bibi emfa light on the especially here upper east na vrungo ha ya won chire pan light na nyagoro.
Myriads of concerns there. Castro Senyala is still on the line with us. Castro, we've just heard these individuals telling us about the various challenges they are facing because they do not have light. Those in Accra are gearing up towards a vigil, as it were, against the power crisis. Have you had any hint of that to happen in the part of the country where you are?
Not really, except that people, the residents are threatening to channel their frustrations into voting. That would happen. The upcoming elections, where they would throw out anyone who would not be able to address issues of power, because to them, the issue of power is a very important thing that any government, and in fact, every government should take seriously. And if a government isn't able to address those challenges, they will be left with no other option than to channel their frustration to voting out that government.
Thank you very much, Castro Senyala. He's our guy in the Upper East region. Let's find out from what's happening in Accra. Judith Brown has been going around. She joins us live on the phone as well. Judith, where are you? What can you report?
Right, so I am in the Tashi community, and of course in this area there are lots of stores, and I'm talking about salons, barbering shops, and even cold stores that depend heavily on electricity to work. Now, currently I'm standing in the cold store, and a lot of the workers here are a bit concerned about the incessant power cuts that have been happening in recent times. Of course, this shop depends heavily on electricity, and so without electricity, of course, the meat that they are storing might get spoiled, and that's a lot of money that they've invested into this. So this is the concern for them. They're very much, concerned about this whole issue of power cuts. They are praying and asking for the ECD to do something about this. I was at a hair salon earlier as well, and this salon actually did not have light at the point I was even there. They're losing customers because at the point the customer just walked in and wanted to do some pedicure, and there was no light for them. So that's a lot of money lost for them. So these are the concerns of the people. I'm sure that many of them say that they would probably join if a protection or a demonstration is organized for such power cuts that are happening currently in Ghana.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Judith Brown, bringing us an update from the Greater Accra region as regards the power situation. Now, governance expert Professor Bafwa Jimandua has also called on President Akufo Addo to show leadership and call all the major players in the power sector and give them marching orders to solve the power crisis. Professor Jimandua believes that the Akufo Addo-led government hasn't done enough to find a lasting solution to the power crisis. prices. This comes against what many consider as the intransigence on the part of the main power distributor, the Electricity Company of Ghana, to release a load management schedule despite glaring crisis. Amid the challenge, power sector regulator, the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, is engaged in a feud with the ECG over a 5.8 million Ghana cedi fine imposed on board of directors of the ECG for flouting regulatory directives. Now, let's hear Professor Bafo Agyemang speaking to Alfredo Council earlier.
The general impression I get is that the country is facing a tough time, and that government has not been too active to seeking a solution to this, especially during the recent times when there seemed to have been some very strange conflict between and amongst the various energy players, GridCo and the Electricity Corporation of Ghana and PERC and all that. So it's strange. And that's why I think that the general in this situation, the general commanding all these agencies that I mentioned, is the president. I'm even surprised, maybe he's done it privately. I'm surprised I'll be surprised the president hasn't called the leadership of these agencies I mentioned, ECG, PURC, GridCo, and the others together to really sit them down to give them the marching order that, look, I don't like what you guys are doing with this country. You see, that is leadership. We need a president to be giving the marching order. So far, as I say, if he has done it privately, I don't know. But based on the public pronouncements by these agencies, these state agencies in charge of the energy sector, it seems like he hasn't done that. And it's just sad that we can sit by for agencies that have been entrusted with the destiny of this country, so far as the power supply is concerned, can be playing these kinds of childish games to Ghanaians. And I think that's why a lot of people are getting upset with the way this whole crisis is being managed.
You heard the governance expert, Professor Bafo Agyemang. Now, a senior presidential advisor, Yao Safo-Mafo, is advocating a review of the asset declaration regime for officials in the country. He argues that the current system where officials declare assets tucked away with the Auditor General is not transparent, indicating that this must change. He has been speaking at a forum on open government partnerships and construction sector transparency in Accra. Take a listen.
In Ghana, when you become a minister of state, all levels, public sector at certain levels, the first thing you do is to declare your assets and file same with the Auditor General. What I personally don't like about this law is that after you declare the assets, everything is kept confidential between the Auditor General and yourself. And therefore, it becomes very difficult for anybody to challenge the authenticity of your declaration. I think that, yes, let's declare the assets, but there should be a certain level of transparency in the declaration of the assets that people can access what we declared, also by certain procedures. It happens to be in the Consultative Assembly when we were drawing up the Constitution of the Republic, when we put in this phrase. And I was championing the publication of the assets. And of course, the chiefs were there in their right numbers. The chiefs were so furious with me.
You had a senior presidential advisor, Yao Safo-Mafo. Duke Mesopoku is there covering the event for us. He joins us live on the line. Duke, tell us more as regards what Yao Safo-Mafo has been saying.
Well, so Yao Safo-Mafo is chairing the Open Government Partnerships, which is part of the Construction Sector Transparency Initiative, an initiative sponsored by the United Kingdom that seeks to ensure that there is transparency when it comes to the award of government infrastructure projects and other related issues regarding democratic accountability and transparency. So it was during the speech that he was making that he was cataloging a number of systems and frameworks that currently exist in the country, which ensures that corruption is being minimized. One of the issues had to do with matters relating to improving procurement processes, putting in place the required required measures to ensure that the institutions award contracts in a very transparent manner. In a similar fashion, he also mentioned the fact that there was currently an asset declaration regime required of all government officials, senior government officials and government officials, as a measure to ensure that government officials do not leave office much more richer than they came. However, he had a caveat which he explained that for him personally, as someone who sat in the Constitutional Constituent Assembly that drew up the 1992 Constitution, from that time till now, he has had qualms with how that law has been implemented or even how it was couched. But of course, that was due to the cultural constraints of our country and the chiefs who were in the Constituent Assembly who didn't want people to know their worth when it comes to the assets and other things that he has. But he thinks that the time is right for a certain verification procedure to be put in place so that if you declare your assets to the Auditor General, any citizen who wants to know in the interest of transparency can file a petition or can file a request, or even through the aegis of the Public Accounts Committee, some level of verification and transparency can be introduced to this process, Beatrice.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Duke Meso Opoku, giving us details of what the senior presidential advisor, Yao Safo-Mafo, has been saying. He's asking for a review of the asset declaration regime for officials in the country. Now, to the northern part of the country, where tens of NPP supporters in the Yendi constituency are threatening to vote against the party and its parliamentary candidate, Farouk Aliu Mahama, for failing to return the January 27 parliamentary primary. The supporters say that the decision by the National Executive Committee is dangerous and is not in the interest of the party. The parliamentary primary in the Yendi constituency was marred by violence between supporters of Farouk Aliu Mahama and Hajia Abibata, leading to an abrupt end. The National Executive Committee of the MPP affirmed Farouk Aliu Mahama as the parliamentary candidate-elect after months of engagement.
Should be a rerun of the elections. 4. As supporters of Hajia Abibata and true loyalists of the great NPP, we petitioned the NEC. We held several press conferences to highlight the need for the party to intervene to resolve the impasse. In accordance with the letter and spirit of our party constitution and the democratic tenets established by our tradition. Several groups, including the NPP youth in Yendi and the concerned NPP members in Yendi, petitioned and held press conferences to seek a just determination of the issues in the supreme interest of the party. All these efforts fell on deaf ears. 5. The National Executive Committee of the New Patriotic Party has shown a bad faith in this situation and has taken an uncompromising position not to listen to anybody.
You heard some supporters of Abibata, one of the Haji Abibata, the parliamentary candidate for the Yendi constituency. Christopher Marco is following the story for us. He joins us live on the line. Christopher, listening to this man and recent developments there, it looks like Yendi constituency is becoming a very hot one for the MPP. Tell us more.
Yes, so Beatrice, exactly so, because since the January 27 parliamentary primary in the Yendi constituency, the constituency has not seen an appreciable level of unity and peace that is in the camp of the ruling New Patriotic Party, because supporters of Hajia Abibata have always maintained that if not a rerun, they are going to ensure that the party, just as what happened in 2008, when the NDC won the seat for the first time, they are going all out not to support the parliamentary candidate. And yet they have re-echoed their stance, even though the aspirant, Hajia Abibata Shani Mahama, their aspirant, for that matter, has indicated that even though she's not happy with the decision of NEC, but she is an MPP member and she will support the cause of the party in the constituency. But they are saying no because they have not been given a listening ear.
Thank you very much, Christopher Amwako, there. But before you go, though, I'm wondering whether there's a committee that was set up to start working on all of these grievances. Has it started working yet?
Yes, so the committee chaired by the Finance Minister and MP for Karaga constituency, Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam, they have started their work, and they have indicated that whatever it is, whatever differences that may be in the constituency, they are going to ensure that they address the differences to make sure that the party retains the parliamentary candidate. But some audios we have intercepted indicates that the people or the supporters of Haji Abibata Shari Mahama are threatening that they will not even allow the committee into their constituency to even engage them.
Thank you very much, Christopher Malcolm, reporting live from the Northern Region. You're still here on the Midday News on 3FM. When we come back, we'll tell you what Professor Stephen Adu has been telling us.
Freezer, yeah, diaba. Adama for diaba. Hey, freezer. Adama. Adama, Metimoso, my sorry. Canino, Obo Moasia. I do for Nobium Unum and San last night. I don't know what we did. Adama for Adama, from what we say. Yet, you drew back up a ship we be a high technology. I could for freezer. When Kwan, and once open your 15 letters. No fugum, what ya no fugum. What the bus here, for your being over what you equity self, over Timono. Then we sure say, woman shown Tassia. Then what's enough for now? Freezer, power up a day. Freezer,
Dacia, a person does so among Ammoniaji.
To me, me what's he car? To me, but you may not do some doom. Adama, with that Adama, no queer. Adama, you can't resist.
Ubenya Adama West Africa for a dream, or baby bear a tongue cry on who you. I feel Kayona Kinkai in Choya, a dream.
And you're still here on the Midday News on 3FM. Thank you for staying. Now, former rector of GIMPA and an economist, Professor Stephen Adu, has spotted the Ghanaian team negotiating the IMF deal and the next tranche on the back of what he calls a good job done. But that praise is coming with a caution that there's a need for Ghana not to be complacent but work towards a better future to avert another worsening economic situation. The comment comes as the Minister for Finance, Dr. Amin Adam, indicates that Ghana's bilateral creditors are working with the creditor committee to get an MOU on the country's debt. In an exclusive interview with me, Professor Adu said that there is a need for Ghana to put in the necessary structures that would help protect the economy.
I think that we must give credit to our Ghanaian negotiating partners. They have done extremely well.
Why do you say so?
First of all, the period over which such negotiations normally take place is much longer. We are seemingly having one of the shortest ones. Two, I think that on the whole, it seems the IMF has a lot of confidence in the ability to manage the system. And for me, it's quite unusual that the comments of IMF has generally been positive in favor of Ghana. And even now, they are prepared to go ahead and disburse the next tranche before these agreements are concluded. This is quite positive. The IMF has a dual role. They must do something to pressurize the bilaterals and then the bondholders. So it's in Twi, we say, they must say something to make sure that the people whom they are negotiating with will respond favorably, but also not make Ghana complacent. Because after all, it is our quote-unquote misdeeds or mismanagement that will have led to that. So, but I think that generally, I have confidence that we will pull through. And the Minister for Finance probably is well on track in terms of giving confidence, building upon his predecessor's work.
By end of next month, looking at the concerns expressed earlier, do you really think that we could have something by end of next month?
Most likely we will slip, but it will not be damaging to the cause. I mean, all throughout, dates have not been sacrosanct. The possibility that if the bilaterals don't come in, the IMF, though, has in principle agreed to release the tranche. Actually, if you follow the news yesterday, they are willing to release the tranche without an agreement with the bilaterals. So I think that we will pull through.
One of the things that a lot of economists talk about is as you implement a lot of policies, one of which is now getting Ghanaians living abroad to pay tax if they have some sort of business doing here or spend some number of days here. And a lot of people say that these could be good, but until you cut down on your expenditure, you may not be able to achieve that overall thing that you're looking for.
In terms of the taxes, the external ones, of course, in the other countries' jurisdiction, all your income everywhere is taxed. But they shouldn't make too much of it, that within a short time, they are going to get so much from this source that will solve our problem. I don't really think so.
But you think it's a good initiative?
Yeah, it's an initiative. Actually, it's the norm that internationally, all your income from every source is either taxed. If you have a double taxation agreement, then when you pay here, you don't pay there. But the sum total of your income is taxable. And therefore, it is not unusual, except that in Ghana, we have gotten away with so much murder that now when we talk about normality, it becomes strange. If inflation was about 55%, we are now hovering about 25%, and the possibility that by the end of the year will be 15%. So in that sense, it is correct. But then the economy is still fragile. We are not collecting enough revenue. The expenditure has not been cut within a certain reasonable rate. So we have that problem that we have to countenance with. So we are not out of the doldrums, but our situation, which was very bad about a year and a half ago to a year ago, we have acting crossover.
Admittedly, we are not the same place as 2022, when the dollar was even almost 16. At a point, it got to 16 per city. But if I get what you're saying, yes, we are not at the very worst place.
Yes.
But don't get too excited
No,
about
you shouldn't
coming
be.
in because you're not out yet.
You know, the politicians, both government and the opposition, when if they have started their campaign, sometimes I get worried because they are not talking to us how we are going to get out of all these doldrums. For example, you know that they are servicing the domestic debt, but the actual bonds are not being paid. We have just postponed it for 2 years or 2.5 years from now. And in that case, if none of them come up with a very feasible solution, how they are going to manage it, we could hit another snag and a serious challenge after 2026. So what I'm saying is that we shouldn't be complacent. We must have a sustainable solution, or else we will manage this year and next year, and then boom. So this should be, unless during that time we manage our expenditure, we increase our revenue, and especially our imports are brittled, because now everybody thinks that we are getting out there, people are promising there's going to be flat tax, which they mean is going to be lower taxation and the rest. No, if we are not very careful, within 2 years we will hit another storm. And that is what we should plan to avoid in addition to the current one.
You heard the economist and former rector of GIMPA, Professor Stephen Midday, giving his comment on the country's IMF deal. And that's how we end the news here on 3FM. Our top stories. Calls deepening for the removal of Energy Minister Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh over worsening power crisis, even as groups gear up to hit the streets. We brought you details. Meanwhile, governance expert Professor Bafwa Jimanduya is urging President Akufo-Addo to show leadership by calling the power sector players to order. Also, tensions mount in MPP in Yendi constituency over party's decision not to rerun the January 27 parliamentary primary. My name is Beatrice Adu. Thank you very much for joining us today. Log on to 3news.com for more news. Coming up next is Business Daily. Don't go away.
FM 92.7 Urban Lifestyle Radio Station. Hello, good afternoon. This is Business Daily on 3FM 92.7. Coming up, Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry demands immediate action on recent power crisis. We'll hear from Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber, Mark Bedu Abwaji.
Some of the products in the process of production, the lights should go off. You lose all the raw materials, and it's a cost to businesses. So we've had cause to complain.
Also, Ghana Revenue Authority clarifies tax residency and opens special window for regularization for Ghanaians earning abroad. We'll bring you a detailed explainer on this issue. We have details of these and more lined up for you in the next 10 minutes. My name is Menu Afo. Stay with me. Thank you for your time. In our first story, the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry has expressed deep frustration and disappointment as the ongoing power crisis in the country, which they say is wreaking havoc on businesses. In a statement, the chamber outlined significant implications of the doomsaw on productivity and revenue and say it is demanding urgent solutions to the problem. Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber, Mark Bedu Abwaji, spoke to 3 Business.
Anytime that we have challenges with energy, it affects basically all the things that we are doing. And I think for the past 3 months, we've seen this erratic and power outages affecting business. We have our members complaining about the impact of these outages on their businesses. In fact, some of them have also reported of breakdown of machines. And some of the products in the process of production, the lights should go off. You lose all the raw materials, and it's a cost to businesses. So we've had cause to complain. We have asked, just as other individuals and institutions have asked for a timetable. It's not for nothing, but for businesses to plan. If you know that power will go off in an hour in the next 2 days, definitely you'll find an alternative source of power to be sure that your production is ongoing. But when there's no announcement, when you don't have any timetable, and all of a sudden in the course of production the light goes off, you lose a lot of things. So it's a big problem for us. If it's for a short period, even if it's for a day, in other jurisdictions, if the light will go off for a day, it's well communicated.
You heard from Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mark Bedu Abwaji there. In more stories, the Ghana Revenue Authority has addressed public concerns regarding the tax status of Ghanaians earning income abroad. The clarification centers on who qualifies as a resident individual for tax purposes according to the Income Tax Act 2015. My colleague Ebeni Jikumbuating has come through with this explainer.
The question that arises is who qualifies as a resident taxpayer in Ghana. According to the Income Tax Act 2015, Act 896, several factors determine resident tax status. If you are a Ghanaian citizen with a permanent residence in Ghana and reside here throughout the year, you are considered a resident taxpayer. Spending at least 183 days within any 12-month period in Ghana qualifies you as a resident taxpayer. Ghanaian government employees or officials stationed overseas are considered resident taxpayers. Citizens temporarily away from Ghana for less than a year while maintaining a permanent home in Ghana are considered resident taxpayers. The GRA opens a special opportunity for Ghanaians with undisclosed foreign income. To ease tax declaration and payment, the GRA has opened a special window for resident individuals to rectify their records and report any previously undisclosed foreign income. This is a chance for eligible Ghanaians to regularize their tax affairs. The GRA strongly encourages all Ghanaians earning income abroad to utilize this opportunity and ensure their tax compliance. It encourages all eligible Ghanaians to take advantage of this opportunity to ensure their tax records are up to date.
Well, that was an explainer by my colleague Eben Ejikum Boateng on who qualifies as resident individual for tax purposes according to the Income Tax Act 2015. Away from that, economist Professor Lord Mensah is advocating for a deliberate implementation of industrialization policies to fortify the city. His call comes in response to a projection by rating agency Fish Solutions indicating that the city may end the year trading at 12 cedis 25 pesos to the dollar, a forecast that Professor Lord Mensah questions. According to the economist, without intervention, the city could depreciate to as low as 14 cedis 50 pesos to the dollar by year end. He emphasizes the importance of reducing demand for dollars by promoting locally produced alternatives as a key measure to prevent further depreciation.
If your currency is depreciating, it's supposed to make foreign goods, and services expensive. And if it makes it expensive, it deters consumers from going in that direction. And they come to the local market to come and replace it with whatever they were consuming. But we have not done any production to replace. So let's take, for instance, rice. You see, if importation of rice becomes expensive, it would turn people to the local, rice. But can we meet the demand for that local rice? We can't, because we've not done any conscious policy. Our policies that we're rolling out has never produced to a level where it will meet up with, those local demands. Yes, of course, we can use, other inflows that are, dollar-oriented to signal the market. But, in the reality, we have to work hard to make sure that we change the structure of the economy in the long term. But the medium term, what we are doing is just to use, these inflows to manage expectations.
That was the voice of economist Professor Lord Mensah. Now we'll shift your attention to former Finance Minister Seth Terkper, who has criticized government for its position on excess capacity for the energy sector. Recently, Finance Minister Dr. Amin Adam was the latest to blame the John Mahama-led administration for procuring excess power that he claimed the country did not need. According to him, this was a financial burden on the nation's coffers. We'll hear from former finance minister shortly, but let's hear first from Dr. Amin Adam, who made these comments at this year's IMF spring meetings.
In the past, we procured energy through unsolicited projects. Now we see that the costs are coming down, and therefore we can acquire more capacity at lower cost through competitive procurement. And therefore, for renewables, for example, we have moved from feed-in tariffs to competitive procurement so that we can lower costs. And so we should avoid the practice of procuring energy through unsolicited projects, because that tends to be very expensive. Also, it is important that when you are in crisis, you do not acquire as many generation capacity as you will not need. Because the tendency for investors to come knocking on your door and justifying why you should acquire more because you have crisis is very high. And at the end of it all, you acquire capacity at very high cost, which you will have to contend with for the rest of the lifespan of those contracts.
That was Finance Minister Dr. Amin Adam. Let's now hear from former Finance Minister Seth Terkper, who described the Finance Minister's comments as irrelevant and contributive factor to the current power crisis bedeviling the country.
Excess capacity per se is also needed to balance, demand and supply, right? In the sense that, if you don't overdo it, right, and you have it, gauge, conditions may come where you may need, the excess capacity. Conditions may come where you do not need it. But I don't think that in our situation today, that kind of caution, is relevant. Overcapacity we're talking about. Yeah, we may have the capacity, in terms of the production, which was, what was, but then what are the consequences? How did we manage it? How did you manage the IPP? How did you manage their payment through SNA? Right? Such that they're having difficulty in the current situation. Right? SNA was supposed to clear those arrears. But we didn't. We collateralized it, didn't apply.
Well, you heard the voice of former Finance Minister Seth Tekpe ending Business Daily on 3FM 92.7. For more business stories, please log on to our website on 3news.com. My name is Minu Afo. Do stay tuned. Urban Blend is up next with Black Rasta.